Hi guys, today is the last of our monetary policy tools to affect the money supply and credit. Today focuses pretty specifically on the money supply. So we've looked at the reserve requirements, we've looked at the discount rate. Today is called open market operations. And so what the government does is buy or sell government securities. Okay, I don't know if you're familiar with a savings bond or not. Like I used to get them all the time from my grandma for Christmas. So the idea is she goes in and buys a $50 savings bond for 25 bucks. I hold on to it for 30 years. You can see that here. I hold on to it for 30 years and then it's worth double what she paid. It's worth the $50 when I cash it in rather than the 25 that she bought it for. Um, so there's two types of government securities. You've got those savings bonds, which you might be familiar with, and then you've got treasury bills. And these are kind of the same thing, but they're just quick returns. So the idea is I can go to a bank, purchase a bunch of government treasury bills. It's just like a savings bond. I pay a slightly lower price than what the total amount will be worth. And so when I leave the bank, I've given them $96 and I leave with basically a government check for $100. After 4 weeks, I can cash that in and get my $100. Okay, so like treasury bills don't really operate quite that way. Like you probably wouldn't go into KeyBank and purchase them. You get them from the government website and they're usually purchased in bulk. It's stuff that like financial people do, but they work essentially the same way as bonds. Okay, so government securities, they're basically you loaning money to the government. You give them this cash now, and then at a later point, they repay you with interest. Okay, savings bonds are really long term. Treasury bills are really quick turnover. You pay a certain amount, you get more back when you cash it in. Okay, that's all we really need to know for our purposes at this point. You know, this stuff is pretty complex. I'm just hoping at the end of the day you have a basic familiarity with these concepts, not necessarily that you're an expert. And so, what the Federal Reserve does is that they can choose to either buy these bonds and treasury bills back from the public, or they can sell them to the public. Okay, and so they can do that through the rates they offer them in order to affect how many dollars are out in the world. Okay, so that's the tool we're looking at today. The Federal Reserve either buying or selling government securities, these bonds and treasury bills, to affect how much money is out in the world for us to get our hands on. Okay, so in order to solve these questions, you basically have to figure out, what do I want the economy to do? Do I want it to expand or do I want it to contract? Okay, we know that for economic expansion, we've got to move that demand curve to the right. How do we move the demand curve to the right? We pump money into the economy. Okay, and there's lots of different ways to do that, but money into the economy for me to get my hands on and spend pushes the demand curve to the right. Of course, the consequence of that is inflation. If the government is concerned about inflation, if they want to see that demand curve slow down or maybe move to the left, then we have to pull money from the system, make it more difficult for people to get their hands on cash. They purchase less, it moves the demand curve to the left. Okay, so how does the government do this? Do we buy or sell? Well, basically, think about what you want to happen. Let's say we want to expand the economy, so we have to pump more money out into the world. So, how do we do that? We take the government securities from the public and we give them cash. We buy those things back from the public. Okay? If we want to do the opposite, if we want to slow the economy, then we have to take money out there. So we put more bonds and T-bills into the hands of the public. You can't spend a treasury bill at Target, right? So we put more of those things into the hands of the public. We take their cash. That's called selling a thing. And so if that's kind of too confusing for you, and we'd work with this in class a little bit more, obviously, if we were together, here's kind of your easiest thing. If we want to build the economy, we buy. That's going to be the thing that pumps money into the markets. If we want to slow the economy, then we sell bonds and T-bills. Okay, use that as your basis, and you'll be able to answer these questions. Build the economy, buy treasury bills. Slow the economy, sell them. Okay, and again, this is all real world stuff. Like here's what the Federal Reserve has announced they're going to do right now as a result of the economic crash from the stay-at-home orders. The program's called quantitative easing. It's just a fancy word for The Federal Reserve is going to try to flood the market with cash by purchasing tons of government securities back from the public. Why does that work? Because now you no longer have those savings bonds. You no longer have the T-bills in your hand. You have the cash instead when the government buys those back from you. Okay, and so the Federal Reserve announced that they're going to buy $500 billion worth of securities back. And then additionally, they're going to buy $200 billion worth of government-backed mortgages, like home loans. So you think about when we talked about fiscal policy, we had a $2 trillion stimulus package. And now we have another $700 billion worth of cash flooded into the markets. The government has responded in a very significant way to try to get the economy rolling and to keep it from crashing as low as it will by putting as much cash as they can in the hands of consumers and business owners so that hopefully we continue to purchase and continue to move that demand curve to the right and stop that free fall from lots of businesses having to stop work. This is the same kind of a program, this quantitative easing, purchasing of government securities. Same thing we did back in the financial crisis of 2007 and 2008. Okay, so if all that's too much for you, it's cool. Just remember, if we want to build the economy, we buy. If we want to slow the economy, we sell. Okay, so let's do these practice ones. The Federal Reserve is looking to slow down the pace of growth because they're concerned about inflation climbing too high. So we need to get money out of the economy, right? We need to slow down purchasing so that the demand curve doesn't move to the right anymore. So we're going to have to decrease the money supply. To do that, how do we get cash out of the market? Well, we need to sell. Sell would slow the economy. The effect would be to contract the economy. Okay, this one's obviously the opposite, but let's talk through it. The Fed wants to encourage people to buy homes and start businesses. So if we need people to buy, they got to have cash. How do we get cash out there? If we want to build the economy, we have to buy. We'll get the money supply to go up. We do that by, again, purchasing those government checks back from the public and giving them the cash instead. That helps to expand the economy. Okay? Hopefully this video can help. Again, at the end of the day, we're not looking to become economists here, all right? I don't think you're going to go from this lesson to working at Goldman Sachs. We're simply looking to give you an overview of how this stuff works, okay? Keep in mind that when you get these scores back on these practice ones, you're like, oh my gosh, I got a 40%. Yeah, but you missed 3 points. Like in the scheme of things, it's not that big a deal, okay? So just try your best. If you have questions, email me, but don't let it stress you too awful much, all right? Have a good one.